Hello and welcome back. So right now, before we implement session on our web application, let's first understand what is a session. Okay, and before understanding session, I want to introduce cookies to you, because if you do not understand cookies, you cannot understand session. Or if you understand also session without understanding cookies, then it will be challenging to face some scenarios. So let me start it from the scratch. I know that you guys already understood cookies, session, and all these things in your web development course or in your JSP or servlet course. But right now, let me recap everything and let me revise everything, because before we start implementing these things inside our project, I need to make sure that we all are on the same page. So let me start from the cookies. So hopefully I'm sharing my screen right now. Yeah, I have shared my screen. So right now you can see a slide on your screen. Okay, so let's say I have a client machine here and I have a server right here. Let's imagine that this is my machine and this is the Amazon machine. Let's say I want to shop something from Amazon or something, so I need to connect to Amazon, right? So right now, imagine that I am going to establish a connection with the Amazon server. So I'm sending a request. Let's say I want to purchase some camera or something. So I'll say amazon.in/camera. So a request will go to Amazon server. Now once Amazon server accept this request, it is going to handle it. It is going to do some processing. It is going to generate a JSP page or something, a web page or a HTML page. Then it is going to send back that particular page as a response to my computer, and then I can see that page on my screen. And once I see this camera page, the connection between my computer and the Amazon server will be dropped. Why? Because the connection that I'm establishing with the server, that is over a HTTP. The protocol that I'm following here to connect to the server, I am using the HTTP, and HTTP is a stateless protocol. Hopefully you have heard this sentence, thousands and thousands times during your career. But well, HTTP is a stateless protocol. So once we connect to the server gives us a response back. The request and response, both these objects will be destroyed, right? So the next time, if I connect to the server, that will be a new request. The server will be receiving, and the server at that time will not know me that who I am. So okay, so imagine just like this. Right now, there is some cameras in front of me. So I have picked one camera and I have added it to the cart. Okay, and then I closed the Amazon site, and then I went to Facebook. So I went to Facebook, I scrolled memes for around 2 or 3 hours. Then again, I came back to Amazon site, right? Right now I want to see what I have added to my cart, and I want to again start my browsing after a 2 hours of interval. So now imagine that, again, this is a new screen. Let's imagine this is my computer again, my client, and this is the Amazon server. Right now, let's say again, I'm trying to hit amazon.in/cart. I want to see whatever the items I've already added to the cart. So right now, again, a request will go to the server. Now this server right now identifies me, that is me. That is me connecting to the Amazon server right now. Is does some processing and is just created a page dynamically which was built for me. Okay, and right now it has gave me that particular page back, and I can see a camera on my cart. So the question is here, if HTTP is a stateless protocol, and if every time this request and response object get destroyed once the request has been served and I got a response back, then how does this particular server, this particular Amazon server recognized me? Okay, this is me. This is another guy sitting with another laptop connecting to the Amazon server. How Amazon is keeping track of this of these particular things? This is Avilas. This is another guy. That is another guy. How does these things happens? And there, when I want to introduce to you something called a cookie. Okay, so cookies are something I mean, it was, I think, invented back then, 1995 or something. I read in my engineering books, 8, 9, or 10 years back. So cookies are first invented in 1995 by a company called Netscape, probably. And that company, Netscape, was trying to build some kind of a website which can keep track of user preferences. And that's why they built cookies. They have invented cookies. So as I said cookies are helpful to track user preferences. Then right now the straightaway question will be, as the HTTP is a stateless protocol, then how does the cookie is going to help us to track the user preferences? Because one time we give a response back to the client, then as a server we do not know that who is the user who is actually trying to connect us, and how this cookie is going to simplify all these things. And to make you understand this, again I'm going to take the same example, and I have developed this particular slide specifically to make you understand how does the cookie works. So now imagine you are connecting amazon.in/add to cart. You are hitting this URL. Then obviously the request will go to the Amazon server. Right now, this Amazon server will do what? It will do some processing, and it will generate a HTML page or a JSP page, whatever the front-end technology that you are using. And also, whatever the item you are trying to add it to the cart, right? So it will do what? It will create a cookie for that. Okay, and this cookie is just a text file. Okay, and in this text file, this particular server, this particular Amazon server is going to write all the information about the thing that I was trying to add to cart. For an example, let's say I was trying to add a camera to the cart. So Amazon server will generate the cart page, okay, for the camera, and also it is going to create a cookie, and it will write there that this user Abhilash or this user 101 is trying to purchase a camera. Okay, so the item he want to purchase is a camera. He's going to write this information to this text file, or what we call cookies. Okay, and this is going to do what? As a response, whenever we're going to send the response from server to client, it is going to give the response, and it is going to send both the HTML page and the cookies to the client's computer. Right now we're going to see that HTML page on our screen, and also we have a cookie here. So where does the cookie stores? The cookie gets stored inside the client's computer. So this is my computer, right? And here right now the cookies get stored. Okay, and in this cookie the server has its information that, okay, this is the user wants this particular item and he has added this thing to the cart. And right now what happens, once I see this HTML page on my screen, the request and response object gets destroyed, right? Let's say right now I close my browser and I went to Facebook again. I did chatting for 10-20 minutes and I came back again. And right now, again, I want to hit another request here. Let's say amazon.in and /cart. Right now, this cookie also go to the server with my request. So whenever I'm going to send this request to the server, the cookie which I got inside my computer, that will go to the server. Okay. And inside the server right now, the server right now has something. Okay. The server is going to check this user is accessing my site for the first time, or he visited my website millions of times. This is how the server is going to decide by reading the cookies. It is going to see, okay, does this person does have a cookie with him? Yes, he has a cookie. Then it will read the cookie. Okay, accordingly it will generate the HTML page. Okay, this particular person already had a camera on his cart. So right now the way he generates this HTML page by reading the information from the cookies, because here it was previously written those information, right? And right now it will create a new cookie. Let's say I want to add another thing to my cart, right? Right now it will create a cookie with 2 items inside the cart, right? And it is again going to send this particular HTML page and the new cookie to the client's machine. And this particular cookie is going to be stored inside the machine, and the user is going to see the HTML page. So the reason why I want to show you this particular slide, I just want to visualize all these things just to give you an impression that the cookie is actually going back and forth between the client machine and the server machine over the HTTP, so that the server can keep track of the user, that who is he and what his preferences are, so that we can personalize a particular page for a particular user. So this is how the cookies work, and this is so beautiful with theory, but cookies are very complicated to use, and I recommend not to use that. No, I shouldn't say that. This is going to be a controversial statement. People with a lot of experience is going to, scold me on the comment section. So I do not want to make that statement, but a lot of sites, if you go to a particular site called GTmetrix, right? So if you create a particular site, what is the speed of that particular site? If you want to decide, you can visit a particular site called gtmetrix.com. That GTmetrix is a very popular website. A lot of people use that, and if you put your URL inside the GTmetrix, it is going to advise you to use a cookie-free website. But that is not always true. Our website should use cookie, because cookies are very helpful, and I'll also tell you when you need to avoid that, and what is the replacement that we have for cookies, or what is the alternative that we have for cookies. I'll tell you the disadvantages later, but right now this is how the cookies work, right? So before we discuss more theory about the cookies, let's experience it by doing some coding, because I need to prove this, right? The server is generating the cookies, it is sending to you, and how all these things happening. To make you understand this, I am going to go to my STS again. And right now, let's back to our love calculator, and let's try to fulfill our requirement that we wanted to have. Okay, so where we are with our application. So right now, the thing that we want to do with our application right now, we have this home page. Let's say user is entering Jack and Rose. He will hit on the calculate button, and right now we are getting the Jack and Rose right here. Now let's do one work. When we click on send result to email, this is going to be a new request to server, and right here we need to keep track of the username. Let's say hi Jack. So can we store the username with a cookie? Okay, so every time the server is going to accept a new request, it is going to check what is the username of this particular user, so that we can display the name of the user just right here in this page. Let's say if somebody is writing his email ID right here and he is clicking on send, again this is going to be a new request, but if we have the username stored inside the cookies, then we can read that in our web page, and we can say that, well, hi user Jack or hi user Vilas, based on the username. Okay, so the username, actually I'm planning to store it inside a cookie. Okay, so this is not going to be the production standard code, but well, we need to understand it. Okay, how does the things work? Then we can make our code production standard. Okay, so right now let's implement this particular feature. So we have this particular page. So right now in this page, we are going to track the username, which is going to be the Jack, and this Jack will be getting from here, from the home page. Whenever he'll be entering Jack right here, we are going to track everywhere. Right here also we are saying Jack. Right here, send result to email. Here also we are going to say hi Jack. Okay, and again once he enters the email ID and he hits the send button, again we need to say hi Jack, we have sent your email to your email ID. Let's store this username inside the cookies, and let's see how does the cookie work in real time. Okay, so right now let me switch again to STS. Okay. Alright, so right now let's go ahead and let's create a cookie for username or your name. So what I'm going to do, let's say if the user is entering Abhilash here, and for the cross name, if he's entering Abhilash 123, then what is going to happen? If I hit calculate, it'll go to the next page, right? So right now we have a hold on the username and his cross name right here, so that we can right now store this information inside a cookie. right? So now let's first create a cookie for this username called Avilash. So right here inside this particular controller, as user is going to enter his name right here, when he hits the calculate right here, we know we have the access to his name and to his cross name right here inside the query string, right? So let's capture it inside this particular handler method, and let's create a cookie for the username right here, which is Avilash. Cool. So to do that, first of all, which controller handling this particular page? Obviously, I will go to the LC app controller. So this is process homepage. The URL is /process homepage. I can copy this. I can hit Command Shift L and I can do Command V. And I'll go to this request mapping, which will be inside the LC app controller, I believe. Yeah, there you go. So this is showing my home page and this is the process page. So what I'm going to do right now, right here inside this handler method, obviously I'll be getting the username and cross name right here attached to this particular DTO. So what I'm going to do here, I will create a cookie for the username. Right? You can create cookies for both the username and cross name, but for my requirement, I'm going to create the cookie for the username. And to create the cookie for the username, first I'm going to do what? I am going to use the cookie class here, and I will be using the java.xservlet.http. So right here I can say the cookie equal to new cookie, so that I want to create a cookie, and cookie always have a key value pair. It has a name, what is the cookie name, and what is the value you want to store with the cookie. So let's say my cookie name is going to be unique. Let me say my application name is LC app. So I'll say LC app dot, I want to store the username. So I'll say username. And what is the value? The value I can get from here inside the user info DTO. So I can say user info DTO dot get username. Okay. So whatever the username the user is entering, I want to create a cookie with that. And once I create a cookie with that, I can also decide how long this cookie will be there inside the client's computer. So if I want, I can set the age for this cookie or the time for this cookie for the expiry. So I can say the cookie dot set max age, and I need to specify the expiry here. So let me say that I want to store the cookie for 24 hours. So I can say 60 into 60 into 24. For this much time, the cookie is going to live inside the client's computer. And right here, once this is how I can create a cookie, and my cookie for the username is already got created. Right now, the question is, how can I add this cookie to the response? So cookie, I need to add to the request or response. Imagine where the user is sending the request. Then when we are sending the response back, at that time we are giving them the HTML page and also a cookie. So we are adding the cookie with the response, and once that response reaches the client's computer, that cookie will be stored inside the client's computer. So next time when the client will give another request, that cookie will go to the server. So I am going to add this cookie with the response. So I can do what? I can normally have HTTP servlet response, and I can say response here, and right here I can add the cookie to the to the response object, I can say. So to add the cookie to the response, I can say response, okay, this one, this instance, response dot add cookie, and with this I am going to add the cookie here. Let me copy this. I want to add this cookie to the response, and it has a key value pair here called lcapp.username, and this is going to be the value. So let me save all this thing. Let me stop my server, and let me start my server again, and let me check whether my cookie is getting created and getting stored inside my inside my browser. Okay, so let my server deploy the changes, and then I'll show you how the cookie is getting created, how it is going to be stored inside your computer, and what are the other things which is actually happening right here. These are very, very basic thing, isn't it? I believe you already know this thing, but I cannot just skip it because if I start talking some advanced stuff, people who are learning this for the first time, they will not understand this, so I will not feel good, right? Okay, so my server is started right now. Let me open my Google Chrome here. So I have already hit this URL, enter. Okay, so my server is up and running. So right now what you can do to see the cookies, what you can do right here. So you will go to the developer tool, okay? And right here you can go to network. Okay, not inside the network, you need to go to the application. And right here, what we need to do, this is a different cookie. I'll be telling you that later. So you can see this is my website. This is where my site has hosted, right? I have deployed my website inside this Tomcat, and this is the URL, right? Localhost :8080. So right now let me say my username is Abhilash, crush name is, let's say, something, okay? Then I'll tick this box and I'll hit calculate. And now see what happened here. I got a cookie created here, okay? And the cookie name is lcapp.username and the value is this, Abhilash, and it is coming from the path this, and I got a cookie created here. This is basically a text file. So right now this cookie is there inside my computer and this will not go away, right? Even if you're going to do refresh, I have the cookie name right here and the value right here. Let me actually close the browser, okay? And let me try to open the browser again, okay? And let me hit the same URL, let's say localhost love calculator. Right now I haven't given any value right here, but as this is going from my browser, right? This browser is mine, I'm the user. Right now let me open the developer tool, right? I'll go to the application and you can see I have captured the username already right there. So this particular cookie will be there in your computer till it reaches its expiry time, right? So this is how the cookie works. It's just a text file, right? If you are going to talk about different browsers, let's say this is Google Chrome, right? For Google Chrome there is a specific place where the cookies are getting stored, all those text files are getting stored. For Safari browser there is a place where all the cookies which are specific to Safari browser, they are going to be stored just right there. So I can show you for an example for the Safari browser. Okay, if this is the Safari browser, whatever the cookies this particular Safari browser have, this will be getting stored inside the specific place. I can show you that. Let me go to my library here. So I'm on a Mac system right now. So let me go to the library. So I can hit L. Okay, this is the library. Let me open this particular folder in a new tab, and you can see here there is a specific folder available right here which say cookies, and all these text files are there which are specific to the Safari browser. And just like that, for the Google Chrome also there is a place, for this particular browser also there is a place where all these text files are getting stored right there, and all these things are getting loaded by the browser from that particular folder. Google Chrome basically stores all his cookies inside a database called SQLite or something. I will add the path right here on the screen so that you can also go to that specific folder and you can check whether these particular files are getting stored right there or not. But anyhow, we got to know right now our cookies are getting created, and right now we have a hold on the cookies. So right now if we'll go to the Safari browser and if we'll hit the same URL right here, and right now let me go to the develop option right here, and right here I can choose the option show web inspector, and right here I can see a storage. Inside the storage tab, you can track all your cookies. So right now, see, there is no cookies available right here. Let's say, let me give a different username right here. Let me say, Manav. Okay, cross name, let's say something. Okay, I'm hitting this box and I'll say calculate. Right now, for this particular client, I have a username created called Manav, right? So if I'm going to refresh this particular page, right now you can see the username is Manav. But if I'll go to the Chrome, okay, for this particular client, if I keep refreshing this, you can see the username which has already been stored right here is Avilash. So our web browser is our client. This is what the concept that I want to clarify right here. So for each client, the way the cookies are getting stored, they will be stored in some different location, which is specific for that particular browser. And from there, it is going to read the cookies, and the cookies will be there inside your computer, inside the user computer, so that whenever the browser will send a new request, it is going to send the cookie with that request to the server. Whenever I'll do some operation over this website, this particular browser is going to send the cookie to my server, which is Tomcat in my case, which is there inside this particular computer. Right now, the client and the server both are there inside the same computer. But in real time, the server will be hosted somewhere inside a different location, right? So this is some fundamentals that you need to keep on mind. And this is how the cookies are getting created, right? So whenever I'm sending a request to my Tomcat server by hitting this URL from a Google Chrome browser, here the server is tracking that, okay, this particular browser used by this particular user, right? This is how it is actually tracking who you are, right? So that's why you can see the cookie which is got created for the Chrome browser is Avilash. But if you go to the Safari browser, as it is a different client, right? So if I'll hit the same URL right now, localhost 8080/spring love calculator. If I'll go to this, and if I'll go to the web inspector, right now you can see the cookie that we have for this browser is Manav, right? This is how the server is actually tracking the user based on the browsers, and all these browsers are loading the cookies from different places, right? That's why it is not getting overridden, right? Cool. So I do not want to make these things very complicated, but right now I want to give you a very simple requirement which will make you familiar with the cookies. That will basically tell you how the things basically works, right? So let's say if I'll go to my Google Chrome browser right now, let me delete this cookie. Right click, delete. Sorry, my AC is making noise. If you are hearing some kind of noise here, I'm really sorry about it. Okay, so right now, let's say I am giving some username. Let me give some different username. Let me say Ashish right now. And the crush name, let me say something. Okay, I'll hit calculate. So right now I have a cookie created for username called Ashish. Right now, let me give you a requirement here. If I have a cookie available inside the browser, that means this particular user, Ashish, has accessed my website previously. Right now, I want to give you a requirement. Have you seen some kind of flight booking websites just like GoIbibo or MakeMyTrip.com or something just like that? Whenever you search for flights, right, you can see a lot of flights available in between a specific time. But whenever you close the browser and you come back after a few days, and again you see whenever you are actually trying to access that particular URL, let's say Make My Trip, it already has the information. That particular site already know who you are. What is the destination you want to go, right? It's already kept all your information through some cookies, right? So can we implement the same thing just right here? Let me give you a challenge to you. Let's say right here, this is the home page, right? So right now, let's say if I'm the user, if I'm closing my web browser right here, and again if I'm opening my web browser, let's say new window, and right here if I'm trying to access the same site, let's say localhost love calculator, right now here I need to display the username, right? If the user has already visited us, we would have already have a cookie on the username, we know who the user is. So instead of telling the user, hey, enter your name again right here, we can show his name right here on the text box. So how we are going to achieve it? Let's say when we are actually creating the cookie, we are creating the cookie whenever we are filling up, user is basically filling up and going to the next page. Here right now, here we are creating the cookie right inside the handler method of this particular page. So right here, what we can do, whenever the user is trying to come to our website first here, by hitting this URL, we will read if he has any cookies available with him, and if he has, we are going to read the username value and we are going to display it just right here. Let me implement the same thing. So what I'm going to do here, let me go to STS. Okay, so we are basically capturing the cookie inside the process homepage, and if we'll have a cookie, there will be a cookie available inside the browser with this particular name. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do Command C here. So whenever somebody is trying to hit the slash request, whenever this particular request getting executed, from the request itself, let's say HTTP servlet request. From this request, whenever the request comes to my website for the first time, I'm going to read, okay, request dot get cookies. Okay, there you go. Right now you can see I have this method get cookies, and this particular method will give me all the cookies that I have stored for that particular user. Okay, right now this is going to give me multiple cookies, so you can see it is going to return me a cookie array. So what I can do, I can write cookie array right here, and I'll say cookies, okay, equal to this. And right now what I can do, I can iterate from this array and I can look for the specific cookie that I'm looking for. For an example, here I'm looking for, let me iterate this particular array right now. Let me say for, and right here I can say cookie temp, and I can say cookies, my array name, right, this one. And from here I am going to specifically looking for the cookies. It may return me multiple cookies, but the one that I'm interested for is this one. Right here, more tools, developer tools, and right here the one I'm looking for is this one, lcapp.username. So what I can do right now, I can go here and I can say if, okay, from here I can search what is my cookie name. My cookie name I have created here, right? This is the cookie name. Copy this, Command C, and right here I'm going to do Command V, okay, and I'll say dot equals, okay, and from here, from this temp, okay, from this temp, a get name. So this particular get name is going to give me what? The name of the cookie, which is going to be this. In my case, the name will be lcapp.username. This is what it is going to return me right here. Okay, if it is available, and if it is found, what I can do, I can get that name, right? So I can say temp dot get value, right? It is basically give me the value of that particular cookie. So I'll say string my user name, okay, equal to. So once I got this name here, what I can do, I can set this particular name to this user info DTO. So whenever the form loads, right, if I go here, whenever this particular form loads for the first time, there will not be any value, right? Because we are just simply initializing our DTO here. We are simply initializing our user info DTO. And if you see this home page, if I'll go here, Command Shift R, and if I'll go to this home page, right here, where is the form? This is the form, right? This is the form we are using. And here we are using the user info, which is a model attribute. And inside this model attribute, for the first time, there will be nothing, right? That will be an empty object we are creating. We are not setting any value. So right here, we can say we have the username value. So with this DTO, okay, what we can do, user info DTO dot set username, and we already got the username, my username, okay. So this will be get set to this particular username, right? So whenever we are going to display the user this particular form if he has already visited with our website to our website, and if we have already his username available as a cookie, we are going to show him the username just right here. So let me first of all delete this particular cookie because I want to start things from scratch, and let me see whether things are working fine or not. Let me stop the browser. Okay, so that you'll be familiar that what I'm trying to do here, right? And after that, I'll tell you the disadvantage. What is the con if we are trying to use cookie too much, if we rely on the cookies too much, what is the problem we are going to have. But before that, let me start my server first, and let me see what is the behavior of my application right now, and how the things are working just right now. Hopefully you are not getting bored. Maybe you know all these things previously, but it doesn't matter, right? If I speak about it for more 30 or 20 minutes. Okay, let me go to the browser. Let me do refresh. You can see there is no cookie available. This is also a different cookie, but I'm going to tell you about this later. So right now what I'm going to do, let's say your name, I'm going to give the your name as Rakesh, and the cross name, let me say something, okay, let me give a random value here, otherwise if he is going to watch you will complain. Okay, I'll hit calculate. So I got the username right now, Rakesh. Let's say Rakesh right now close the browser, and he opens the browser right now again. Okay, he has already visited my site. So right now if he tries to access, let's say love calculator, hey, your name, you are Rakesh, man, I know you have already came to my site, right? So this is how you can actually capture the cookies, right? And I can track right now this user is Rakesh. You can already see his name on your name text box. So this particular cookies is going to be expire on this particular time, the time that I set. Okay, right there, set max age. I have set that with my cookie, right? And after that, this particular feature will not work. So I have, whenever I've created the cookie, I have set the age right here, which is this. Hopefully this makes sense. Okay, so right now tell me one thing. Okay, so right now one more thing I can do, guys. Don't you think we are working on Spring right now, and the way we are handling the cookies is not very convenient? Let's say I have a requirement right now. If I'll go to my previous pages, let's say if I'll go to the browser, let's say he enters his crush name right now. I'll do calculate. So whenever the user will click this link, I need to display his name here also. And also whenever he'll enter an email ID and he will hit send, I will also need to display the cookie name just right here as well. So if I am going to keep reading this particular cookie in each of my controller, let's say this particular page is /process email, before that /send email. If I'll go to the email controller, let me go to the email controller right here. Okay, here also I need to read the cookie inside this controller, and right here also inside the process email, I have to read the cookies and need to display the username to my process email page. So if I'm going to keep reading the cookies by this way, first of all, let me tell you, if you have multiple cookies, right, it will be very challenging for read every time, because every time you don't want to write a for loop just right here, and you just don't want to use the HTTP servlet request all the time, because we are working with Spring Framework, and Spring Framework says don't use the HTTP servlet request and the servlet response if it is not needed, right? You guys are using Spring Framework, use the Spring feature. Okay, we will do all these things behind the scene. Okay, as a developer, you do not need to do all these things. These are very standard code, and actually as a Spring developer, we will make it simplify for you guys. Okay, so I'll tell you a shortcut method. I'll tell you a method. I'll tell you an annotation that Spring Framework gives us, and we can use that annotation to read cookies. Okay, right now to read the cookies, we have done whole lot of drama here. isn't it? So let me go to the email controller. Okay, so right now inside our email controller, or let's say I want to read the cookie just right here. So what I can do, I can say here annotation at cookie value. Okay, and right here I can give the cookie name. My cookie name is what? Let me go to the other controller. Let me copy the cookie name. Okay, Command C, and let me go to the email controller again, and let me paste the cookie name, and let me say string username. Okay, so I'll get my username value from this cookie if it will be available. And right now what I can do, I can send this. Once I got this username, I can send it to the next page. Okay, so what I can do, I can use model dot add attribute. Okay, and right here I can write something username. This is going to be my model name, and whatever the value I'll get from here, I'll paste it right here, and I'll send it to, send it to the model. Okay, so right now here inside this page, let me copy this name. Here inside this page, I can do what? I'll go here to the send email page, and right here I'll say hi, and then I'll do Command V, and this is going to be dynamic. So let me use a dollar symbol right here. Okay, there you go, Command S to save it. Let me stop my server, and let me start my server again, and let me check whether the things work. And the reason why I explained you all these things, just to give you a clarity that to read cookie values, we have a shortcut method. We have a beautiful annotation provided by the Spring framework, which is add cookie value, and this is how you are going to read the cookies. Okay, cool. So right now let me check whether my things worked. If I'll go to the browser again, okay, let me come to the first page. Okay, let me say Rakesh 123 calculate. Okay, so it is saying Rakesh 123, and this, you guys are friend. Now let's go to the email page, send result to email, and right now it is saying hi Rakesh 123. Okay, because right now I'm able to read this particular value from the cookies because it is there inside my cookie folder, right? This particular values, I'm storing it inside my cookie. So right now let's say if the user is entering abhilash@gmail.com, right here in this page also we can display the username by using that annotation called @cookieValue, and we can do what? If I'll go to STS, right here inside the process email page, if I'll go to that particular page, process email, right here inside this page also you can display the cookie value. So to do that, what you can do again, you can go to email controller, you can use @cookieValue just like this to read the value just right here, and can add that to the model. Okay, so that you can read it in your JSP page, and this is how you can read cookies in your Spring framework by using @cookieValue annotation. Hopefully this makes sense. Okay, so before I wrap up this thing, I'll just tell you one thing, why it is not recommended to use cookies. Okay, so right now, first of all, tell me where we are storing our cookies. We are storing the cookies inside the client's computer, right? Let's say you are coming to my website. I am storing some information in your computer. Okay, this is just like if you'll come to my room and you'll ask me, hey Abhilash, can I drop my suitcase right here in your room? It is up to me. If I agree, that's fine. If I do not agree, then I will not allow you to, put your suitcases right here in my room. Got that? So it's all up to user. So if the user wants, he will stop you to use cookies, okay? Because you do not want to store all your garbage inside his computer. Because in the end, we are storing the cookies inside the client's computer, right? Maybe the user will not allow you to do that. That will be another scenario I'll be talking about it. The next thing, think about that Amazon example that I have given you, right? Let's say you are adding a camera to the cart. I'm creating a cookie. I'm giving that cookie back to your browser, right? Your browser is storing that cookie inside your computer. And every time there would be a request comes from your browser, I need to read that cookies. So reading and writing cookies is a very challenging task, right? Because whenever we are writing cookies, we are writing it in key value pair, and that is in text format, right? We are not writing binary. If you write binary, you may write viruses to your client's computer. You do not want to write viruses to your client computer. So every time, whenever we are sending the cookies, we are writing in text format. And again, whenever we are reading the cookies, we are converting the text to a object format. Because in Java, we deals with object. We do not deals with a lot of text. Okay. So think just like that. Whenever you are using the Amazon website, if the Amazon is going to give you some cookies, let's say you are adding something to the cart and the cookie information will be huge. Just like what is the product information? What is that item? What is the color? What is the category of that particular product? And again, what is my payment information? What is my credit card number? What is the CVV? Okay. What is the expiry date of my credit card number? And again, what is the shipping address? Think about a shopping cart object. It will be a very huge object, isn't it? And if I am going to write all this information, all this complex object structure inside a cookie, it will not fit into the cookie size. You cannot send a file to the client's browser which will be 30 MB or 40 MB in size. There is a restriction. Whenever you are sending cookies to the client's computer, the cookie cannot be more than 4 KB, I think. So there is always a restriction. So you have to write things with the limit. So you always have a limit that, okay, the cookie size must be 4 KB or something. Okay. So if there will be a very complex object, you cannot transport that thing cookies because it will be a very challenging task to fit a very complex object or very heavy object inside some particular KB, right? So there is space constraint as well. So hopefully you understand the problem, right? Cookies are very awkward to use because we have a lot of limitation. Okay, we need to fit into that limitation if you want to use cookies. First of all, the user may block cookies. That is the first challenge. Second challenge is if there will be a very heavy object, as I said. If you see here inside your LC app controller, whenever we are writing the cookies here, we are creating the cookie just like this because we just want to store the username. Okay. But if it will be a very complex object, at that time, it will be very challenging. Okay. To write all these things by, key value pair and storing it as a text inside the client's browser. And again, whenever we'll be reading them back, we need to read them as objects. So with all this limitation, if you want to use cookies, then again, if you keep writing all these things, the memory the size will be more than 4 KB. If it will be more than 4 KB or something, then you are not allowed to write that particular cookie to the client's computer because the maximum size of the cookie is something 4 KB or something, right? So for very complex object, for very, very heavy object, it won't be possible. So right now with all these limitations, we need to find an alternative, and we have it. We have that alternative. That alternative is called session. So right now, let me tell you about the session and why we should prefer session over cookies. I'm not telling cookies are bad. They will save you in a lot of scenario, but why we should use session over cookies and what is the benefit we'll get if we use session and how can we overcome all these challenges. As I said, we're going to see that right now. Okay. But right now, let me stop the recording first and I will start the recording again today. Okay. So right now, let me start talking about session. Okay. what is a session and how it is different from cookies, and why should we choose session in our scenario. Right now we are trying to implement something in our website, in our scenario, why we should choose session over cookies. Okay, so before I start talking about session, okay, I hope that you got a good clarity on cookie and you have everything on your mind right now. Whenever I say cookie, then you guys should be getting some kind of picture on your mind. So I only need that. Okay, so all this 1 hour or 1.5 hour talk is just for that, just creating that first impression for cookie. And right now let's talk about session. Okay, so the session let me first confuse you. Do you know the sessions are also kind of cookies? How many of you does agree with this statement? The sessions are also kind of cookies. And if you are going to stop the cookie, if you stop the browser to allow cookies, then your sessions are also not going to work. Why? Okay. So let me give you a complete walkthrough on session, and then you can relate to these particular things. So first of all, if I'll talk about session again, let's imagine the same example that I have covered during cookies. Okay, so we have a client machine and we have a server machine, and let's say this machine is mine and I want to purchase something. Let's say I want to purchase a mic. Okay, so if I want to purchase a mic, I will again go to the Amazon and I will try to add a mic to a cart. Then again I'll go to the payment and I'll purchase it. Let's say I'm hitting amazon.in/add to cart. Okay, right now it should be add to cart /mic or something, but imagine that I'm adding a mic to the cart. Right now the request will go to the server that, hey, this user is adding a mic to the cart. Right now the server will again generate a HTML page according to the user specification, and then it is also going to store that particular thing. Let's say I am the user number 1. Okay, the server will mark me as some kind of number. Okay, let's say 1, 2, or 1001, or some number just like that. So inside the server will do what? It will create an ID for me. Let's say 1003, and let's say this user 1003 number user, he want to purchase a mic. Okay, so he has added this particular thing inside the server memory. Okay, and once it store this information inside the server memory, what it does, it creates a cookie, and this cookie right now will not contain any other information. It will only contain the ID of the user. Let's say I'm the user whose number is 1003 and I want to purchase the mic. So this information is there stored inside the server safely. Right now it is only creating the cookie with the ID. Okay, and it is going to do what? With the response, it is going to send this cookie to the client's computer, and also it is going to send the HTML page. This is how the session work. This particular thing that I told you, right? The server kept the user information inside the server memory. Server means what? It's just a computer, right? Inside the computer memory or inside some long-term storage, the server will do what? It will add the information of the user, and accordingly with that user ID it will generate a cookie, and it will send that cookie to the client. And right after that, again request and response, this particular objects will be get destroyed. And right now, as you know, HTTP is a stateless protocol, and right now the connection between me and server is dropped. Right now when I am going to send another request to the server, again this particular cookie, let's say I want to hit another URL amazon.in/cart. Right now this particular cookie will also go to the server, and right now the server will find the item from the storage. Okay, server will see that this is the user who has already visited to my site because he already has a cookie, and the ID number that mentioned with his cookie is 1003. Right now the server will find this 1003 from the storage place, right, where it has stored my personal information. It will find that particular items by using this ID, and once it's found that, it will build the specific HTML accordingly, and again it will send this HTML to the client. And again, also the cookie came from the server to the client. Okay, if I'll be adding any other information to my cart, or if I'm adding any other products to my cart, then those items or those products will be added to this item column, right? Here I'll have mic, camera, okay, a light or something, all these things will be added to this items column. And this ID, this is just specifies that, okay, this is that particular user, right? And accordingly, right now, a cookie having only the ID of the user is going back and forth, to client to server and server to client. And this is how right now the server is going to track my information. But the new thing that we learned here, we are right now not writing everything to the cookie. Inside the cookie, we are only storing the user ID, okay, which is specific to a particular user. And using this particular ID, server is storing all this information inside the server only. And the cookie that the client has right now, this particular one, it only contains the ID of the user, so that the server can track, okay, this is user number 1002 or 1003. So this particular approach is pretty much beneficial if you compare to normal cookies. This particular thing is called session. You can see here, I told that the server will store my information inside some long-term storage. Okay, even if this particular thing is configurable, if I want to store the user information within a database or something, I can also do that. And primarily, the server will store all this information inside the server memory, or what we call the in-memory. So whenever you stop the server, all this information that you are storing will go away. So 2 points I want to clarify here. The cookie, only with the ID, some kind of ID, is going back and forth between the client and server, by which the server can keep track of the user information and keep track of a session. Okay. And the next thing will be, as we are not writing all the information to cookies, inside the cookies, we are only storing the ID. Let's say if you talk about a shopping cart, right now, all the shopping cart related information, let's say about the payment information, about the shipping information, all this information right now, I'm not writing to the cookie. Instead, I am storing all this information inside my server itself. So there is no constraint with the memory, right? So previously, I used to think, okay, if I'm writing all this information to my cookie should not be more than this particular size, let's say 4 KB or 6 KB. So in most of the scenario, if you have any complex object, then that particular size will obviously, it will exceed that particular size, and it will be very difficult for us to manage cookies. But right now, we are not writing all these things to the cookies. We are storing all this information, the shopping cart related information, inside our server memory, right? So as we are storing it inside our computer memory, and we are not sending all this information over the HTTP protocol or over the HTTP, that's why this is really convenience for us to manage it, because we are storing it inside our server. And one more point that I want to highlight here, the session memory, we have it inside our server, as I said, right? Cookies get stored inside the client side, but the session is basically gets stored inside the server, right? So I believe that right now you have a good hold on the session as well. At least you understand the concept, right? Right now, one more very important thing is that the way we are going to implement the session with our project is going to be really simple. Whenever we are working with cookies, we are writing the cookies by ourselves. We are reading the cookies. We are basically seeing the cookies. Okay, this is the cookie I'm creating. Okay, this is the cookie I'm trying to retrieve. So I'm basically dealing with cookies. Okay, as a developer, I do have to interact with the cookies by seeing them personally. Okay, this is the cookie that I need to manage. But if you talk about session, creating cookies, retrieving cookies, and all these things, as a developer, I do not need to think about it. This is the most important thing, guys, and I'm going to prove it with the code right now. But the amazing thing with the session, okay, the session, we can achieve this particular session stuff by using the HttpSession API, and the code there is going to be very simple. It is very simple to create a session and to manage them, because as a developer, we are not going to be creating cookies. As I have told you that here, this particular cookies is going back and forth, and it is tracking the user information. But as we are not dealing with the cookies personally, whenever we'll be dealing a session, we will not be creating cookies, we will not be fetching cookies. All these things will be happen behind the scene by the HTTP session API. So right now, let me show you the code so that it will be more comfortable for you guys to understand. And working with session is really, really easy. And let me prove that with code right now. I hope you guys have some kind of idea about the session right now. So first thing I'm going to do here, let me remove all this cookie stuff. Okay, so let me remove all this cookie stuff right here. And also inside the process homepage, I'm creating cookies somewhere. Okay, so let me remove all these cookies because I am not going to use cookies right now. Instead, I'm going to use session. So let me remove all these things from my controller, and let me hit Command-Shift-O to get rid of all the unnecessary imports. And I hope this looks good. And also inside the email controller, I was retrieving the cookie from here. So let me remove the cookies from here as well. And I'm also need to remove this model.add attribute from here because I have removed the cookies, right? And also inside the send email page, inside this particular page also, I need to retrieve, I need to remove this particular thing, and I'll be coming back to this particular point later, but this is how the things work. Let me do Command-Shift-O to remove all these imports, and let me save everything. And right now, what I'll do is, I will stop my server, and I will restart it again whenever I'll be done with my coding. So right now, the problem, again, we are going to, solve that particular problem, right? If I'll go to my website right now, okay, let me start the server. I will show you how exactly we are going to implement session inside our website, and what is our goal right now, what we are trying to achieve right now. And then we'll start creating a session, and we'll see how easy it is to work with session and why we should choose it over cookies. Cool. So right now my server is started. So right now I am going to go to the root URL. And here, let's say I am going to enter my username as Abhilash, cross name as something, and I am going to check this box, and I'll hit calculate. I went to the next page, and the requirement here is right now send to your email. Whenever I'll go to this particular page, I will display the username here, and again whenever I will enter some email and the user will actually hit this particular button, he will actually see the username just right here. So right now, again, the requirement is same. Whenever the user is basically entering his name right here, the your name, we need to capture the your name, whatever the name of the user, then we need to store it inside the session. We need to store this information inside our server memory. And the next time, the specific object that we want to access, let's say next time I want to access the same Abhilash object or same your name object, then I can definitely use the HTTP session to get it, right? So to make you understand the thing, first of all, let me go to the home page, LC app controller, and here is my home page. Let me hit a Command-Shift-R to open this particular page. And right now, inside the home page, I actually have my username, and this is the thing that I need to capture, okay? So this home page is getting called from my LC app controller, no problem. So right here basically I told you, inside the process homepage, whenever we are submitting our homepage, here we will have our username. We'll have access to our username by using this particular object. So what I can do here, I can do what? I can use HTTP session. Okay, you can see this API, you can see this interface, HTTP session, you need to use this one. Or if you want to use HTTP servlet request also, HTTP servlet request, also you can do like this, servlet request. And right now from here, you will get the session. So you'll say request dot get session. Okay, there you go, get session. Okay, so you will try to get a session object. So what? Okay, let me first handle this one. This get session will return me HTTP session. So I'll say HTTP session equal to, and HTTP session, and let's say session is equal to request.get session, right? And why it is giving me an error, I need to have the import right here. There you go. So from the request object, I'm actually fetching the session. Okay, so what this particular line of code is going to do, it is going to actually run the whole process, the cookie creating process, and then adding that cookie to the response object, all these things, right? This particular line is going to take care. This is going to run the complete process of creating and managing cookie behind the scene. Okay, so right now, this particular method, by this particular method, what we are trying to say that, okay, if it is a new user, then create a new session. And if there is already a session exist, if already there is a cookie exist, then give me that cookie. Okay, this particular line does mean that. Okay, we are not saying HTTP session equal to new HTTP session. We are simply saying get session. If you have that session, give it to me. If you do not have the session, then create one. Okay, and once you create, let's say right now, when the user will be first time coming to this particular handler method, process home page, right now, whenever the user will click this particular page and it will go to the next page, here we will fetch this Abhilash, this username right now, and we will insert that object to our session, right? So right now, what I'll say, session dot set attribute. Okay, you can see it is taking a key value pair. It's basically a map, right? Again, it'll take a key value pair. Let's say my key is username, so I'll say username here, and the value, hopefully you guys can hear me, and the value is, my value is what? My username value I'll get from here in this object, right? User info DTO, so I'll say user info DTO dot get username. Okay, there you go. You no need to do anything else, right? You do not need to do anything else after this code, right? So right now you have created the session and you are setting the username to the server session, and right now you are trying to keep this username inside the server session, inside the server memory, and whatever the name will be retrieved from this DTO, that will be my username value. Right now, let's say I want to use this username in multiple places. As I told you, I need to use this username here inside the send email page, or whenever the user is filling the email and hitting send, I'm going to access that username just right here. I'll need to say hi something. So what I will do right now, I'll go to LC app controller. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy this username right now. Let's say I want it inside send email page, right? So I'll say, I'll give braces here, and I will say command V, okay, username, and there you go. I don't need to do anything else. This is not an error. If I close this and send email page, okay, this error is already gone, and this will not give you an error. Let's say where else we need this particular session. Let's say after the send email page, we also need it inside the process email page. So let me do command shift R to open this. Let me go here, and right now also here I can say the same thing. I can do command V, and this is my session object name, and I can wrap this off with a curly brace because this will be dynamic, and I will be get this thing and from anywhere. Okay, let's say I'm going to do command S to save everything. Right now let me stop my server and start it again, and right now we will see we are going to have the hold of the session object or not. But the point I want to prove here that we are not dealing with the cookies explicitly, right? All these things will be managed behind the scene by the server and by the HTTP session specification. Okay, so right now my server is started, so I want to show you something. Let's say I want to go here to my Eclipse browser, and right here, let's say I want to say your name is let's say right now I'll say my name is John and the cross name is Johnny. Who is this John man? He's going to kill me. Calculate. Okay, so John and Johnny are friend. Send result to your email. Right now, just have a look. We are going to get this object John right now on our email page, and there you go. Hi John. This is pretty sweet, right? Right now, let's say he is entering his email, john@johnny.com. Okay, send, and again, hi John. Your email sent to john@johnny.com. Cute, isn't it? As a developer, We are actually not dealing with a lot of things, and our job is pretty simple right now. So what we are doing, actually, we are inside the LC app controller. We are creating the session object, and inside the session object we are adding this username, and we are just putting this particular username inside the session memory. And right now this particular object is available to every JSP page, to every controller. Let's say wherever inside any controller, if you want, you can access this particular attribute. Here you are saying set attribute, we will say get attribute to get it. Okay, set attribute to set it. Or if you do not want to access these things inside the controller, you can directly go to your JSP page just like this and just use the session attribute name just to paste the session object from the server memory, right? Right now, the only thing I want to show you, just to make you believe that this is behind the scene, it is also using the cookie, right? So the session behind the scene uses cookie only, right? So just to prove you that thing, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this URL, and right now I'll go here. All these cookies are already gone, so let me delete all this thing. And right here I will go to localhost Springlove calculator, enter, and you can see a cookie has been already created, right? And this cookie does have a JSession ID. This is basically the ID that I meant, and this is the value. So my specific user value is this one, some random string. Okay, this particular string is the ID that the server is using to keep track of me, keep track of an user. So let's say right now, if I am adding something, let's say my username is John, and the cross name is, let's say, Java. Let me hit calculate button. You will see there is no other cookies getting created, because whenever the server is accessing the JSP page for the first time, it is actually creating the cookie for you, right, with a JSession ID and with a value. So if you want to disable this particular feature also, you can do it, but by default, whenever we access the JSP page for the first time, the cookie got created, right? And after that, this particular cookie will go back and forth between my client and server, and all my information will be stored inside the server session memory, and this particular key will be used to track my values which is there inside the server, right? So let's say right now, if I'll click here, send result to your email, you can see I am getting hi John. And again, if I'll add something right here and I'll do send, you can see hi John, and your email is successfully sent to this, and this is the cookie which is getting used. If you do not want to believe me, what you can do is, let's say it is saying hi John here, right? Now what I'm going to do, let me delete this cookie. Okay, right now if I say send, that one is gone. right now it's not saying hi John, because it cannot track me, right? This cookie has been created later. The one it was using to track me, I have deleted that, and once I deleted that, it cannot track me, right, who I am. So hope that you learned something new. It's not new, it's pretty common. I have not told you something really fancy or something, but yeah, that's how the cookies are, I mean the session you basically use. Whenever the server creates the session, it basically give you a JSession ID and a value for the JSession ID. Okay, this is basically some random string generated by the server. Okay, and as this is a very simple string, so see, only the data that I have is this much, then this will be surely fit into the cookie limitation. Cookie says, okay, my size will not be more than 4 KB. No worries, we just want to store some kind of simple key there, so not a problem, right? It will be simply fit into the cookies limitation, and we can use it to track the user, right? Cool. So one last thing I want to show you. Let's say what I'm going to do, let me give you a specific requirement. Let's say here it is saying hi John and Java are friend. Let's say send result to email. Okay, the cookie has already been deleted, so what I'm going to do, I am going to go to the home page. Let me access this particular page again. Let me give the username as, let's say, David, first name as something. Let me check this box. Let me hit calculate. Okay, so right now it's saying David and something are friend, sent. Hi David. Right now if I'm entering an email, is saying hi David, email has been successfully sent to your email ID. Right now what I want, let's say I want to change this to hi Mr. David. If I want to do, right, let's say right now what I'm doing, this is my process email, right? This particular URL is handling this particular page, right? So if I'll go to this URL, let me go to my controller, command shift L, command V. Okay, there you go, process email, which is there inside the email controller. Yeah, there you go. Let's say inside here, inside this particular page, process email page, what we are trying to do here, we are basically accessing our session directly, our session object directly, we are accessing it. But let's say if we want to do some operation over that object, then the way that we are going to have a hold on it, that's basically what we can do. Again, we can write HTTP session, or you can write HTTP request, whatever. From the request also you can get session, or directly if you want you can write session, and you can remove this guy from here, and there you go. So right now you got the session object. So from the session you can say what, session dot get attribute, because I want to get that particular attribute, get attribute, and my attribute name is what, username, right? Username. This is my session attribute name, the one I have created inside the LC app controller, right? Right here, right? Let's say I want to get this username here inside the email controller, inside a different controller. I am getting this username, and let's say I am storing this username, string username equal to, this will basically give you an object, so I can cast it to string. So I will get my username value right here. So after that I can say username, I want to add Mr., right? So I can say mr space plus username, it is going to be a new object, right? So let's say string new username, okay, equal to this, and you can give a semicolon here. Right now you can transfer this data through the model to the process email page, and from there you can access this particular object. So what I'm going to do here, here I can create a model object. Okay, so I can create model, and I can add this to my model. So I can say model dot add attribute, and I can say the same thing. I can say username, and I can give the new username to this. Okay, so right now I already have this username object right here inside my process email. Let me copy this username from here, and let me go to this particular page, command shift R to open this. And right here inside this particular page, what is going to happen is, here I'm trying to fetch it from the username. So first it is going to fetch from the model. If the model is not present, then it is going to fetch from the session. But as right now I have a model attribute available, as you can see inside the email controller, I am adding this to the model with the same name as username. So this is going to find it from the model, and if it fails to find it, then it is going to find it from the session. So as we have a model attribute available right now, let's check it out how the things is going to work. So as I'm dealing with the session, let me stop my server, so that all the session objects that I have inside the in-memory, inside the server memory, will be deleted. A new session will be created by the server, and then okay, the server will manage all the cookies by itself, and I can fulfill my requirement in a very easy way, right? So if I'll go to home page right now, let's see what is going to happen. Let's say my name is John, the cross name is Johnny. I'll go to the email page, and you can say hi John. Let's say some email ID he is entering, and he is hitting the send button, and there you go, hi Mr. John. Okay, so this is the way you can actually have a hold on this particular session object. What is happening to my AC? You can hear that noise. Hopefully it is not bugging you guys. Oh, irritating. Cool. But this is how you can actually use your session object. And the good thing here is our HTTP session, this particular API is taking care of everything, creating cookies, managing cookies, and also giving us the opportunity to store the user information inside our server so that we will not run out of memory. But one thing you need to keep in mind, so whenever you are working with session, be very sure whatever the object you want to put it inside the session. Do not just use the session API to manage all of your object. Otherwise, it will be a very challenging scenario for you guys because your server has some limited amount of memory. If you put all your heavy objects inside the session, then obviously, your server memory will be full and you will run out of memory space. So be very sure what are the objects you are adding to the session, and whenever it is really, really needed, at that time only, add those objects to the session and use the get session attribute or get attribute method just right here, to get the value, or set attribute to set the value, right? Hopefully this makes a lot of sense right now whenever I say a session, okay? Alright, so right now what we are going to talk next, we are going to talk about how we can handle session inside the Spring framework, right? So right now if you see here, as I said right now I am using the session attribute, the HTTP session. Right here I'm accessing the HTTP session directly here. So Spring framework provides a better way to handle session, but that particular annotation is basically not meant for the session. Spring framework still says if you want to use HTTP session, you can use it happily, no problem. But still, there is a very important annotation is there inside the Spring API called @SessionAttribute. I'm sorry, I've been speaking for 2-3 hours or more than that probably. The annotation name is @SessionAttribute. Okay, so what is basically the @SessionAttribute does? Okay, I'm going to tell you about it, and we are going to have a brief analysis on the @SessionAttribute in the next video, right? I'm going to break this video after a few minutes, but right now, okay, before I move to the @SessionAttribute, let me tell you about a scenario. Let me think how you guys are going to handle that scenario. So imagine that you have a shopping cart website, okay, just like Amazon, and right now you are storing the user information inside the server session, isn't it? So you are using session, and let's say you are storing all the user information inside the session. So till how long you are going to store those information? Let's say there is a guy who is browsing your site, right? And let's say after 15 or 10 minutes of browsing, he just closed your website and he started browsing something else, right? So right now you imagine that, okay, that particular guy will back to my site and will purchase something, whatever the things that he had in the cart, he is going to purchase that. But let's say that guy is never going to come back to your site, okay? We also do it a whole lot of time, right? We go to a specific site, we do browse sometime, then we add something to cart and we never purchase it. Does that particular site hold our information forever in the server? Not really. So if you're going to hold all those user information, inside your server, then we will soon run out of memory. So we need to make sure for how long we are going to store the session object. Okay, let's say I'm creating a session for a user X. Okay, for how long I'm going to store his information, I need to decide that, right? Maybe if you want, you do not want to delete it inside your server, that's fine. For specific website, that particular requirement is still there, but for most of the website, okay, we need to come out of a standard. Okay, after 20 minutes we do not want to hold the user's data, or after two hours or 3 hours we will not hold the user data. So the way we can achieve it, we can use session timeout, right? After a specific time, that particular session will be timed out and the data which is there inside the session will be removed. And to achieve that, okay, first let me tell you this, because right now here I'm using no XML approach. This is a no XML project, so we do not have the web.xml file. So all this information we basically configure inside the web.xml file, because web.xml file is the deployment descriptor and our server reads our configuration. Whatever the configuration we want to do for our website, we can place all those things inside the web.xml file, and our server will read all those information from web.xml file. But as we do not have a web.xml file right now, we have to code the session timeout programmatically. But if you have a web.xml file, you can use session timeout tag, right? I can show you that. Okay, so let me have it right here and let me open a new incognito window. And right here, I can say, I think that is session config. Okay, probably I'm not connected to internet, but what you can do is you can use the session config tag, right? So I'll write that on the screen right now. You will be writing the session config, and inside the session config tag, you will be writing the session timeout. Okay, then inside the session timeout tag, you can provide the time after what the user session will be disconnected. Okay, or the session objects will be removed from the server. So now let me come back to my STS. But if you want to programmatically configure the session timeout, wherever you are basically creating the session, where I'm creating the session, I am creating the session inside the LC app controller. Here inside the LC app controller, what I can say session dot set max inactive interval, right? And right here I can specify, let's say 120 minutes or something just like that. Okay, I can place that time just right here inside this particular method, and this will make sure that session attribute will be removed from the server after this specific time. Okay, so this is how you can configure the session timeout programmatically and by using the code based approach. But if you're using it in web.xml, use the session timeout. Okay, this is what I want to say. But right now, let me do one thing. Let me remove the session from here. I do not want to use the HTTP session right now. I'll tell you what is the alternative that we have for HTTP session in our Spring framework. Okay, so I think I have removed the HTTP session from everywhere. So as you can see, I do not have anything right here, and I'll do what? I will go to anywhere I have used it. Okay, inside this particular place also, I'm adding the username to the model attribute inside the process email inside this particular controller. So let me remove all these things. Okay, and this is not needed right now. Okay, and also I need to remove the session attribute name from the send email page and the process email page, because right now I will have a different approach to retrieve this particular thing, not by using the HTTP session, because I want to use the session attribute here, not the normal HTTP session. Okay, so let me hit Command S and let me stop the server. And right now, let me tell you that how you can use the Spring framework to handle your session management. So right now, let's say, let me go again to the LC app controller. Right now I have removed everything. Right now we will use the Spring framework to store the user info DTO's user name field inside the session. And how we are going to do that? How we are going to achieve that if we are not going to use the HTTP session? That is the question. Guys, for this, you can simply use the annotation. And the annotation name is @SessionAttribute. Oh, sorry, @SessionAttributes. Because here we can actually store multiple attributes, multiple objects to the session. So this @SessionAttribute does what? It is basically going to store the objects that we want to store inside the session. It is going to run the whole process behind the scene, and it is going to use the HTTP session behind the scene to store our objects, right? So right now, let's say I can give a bracket here, and right here, let's say I want to store this particular object. Let's say user info DTO object. This is my model object, right? Let's say this object I want to store inside the session. Okay, inside this object I have my username, as I told you, right? Inside the user info DTO object, inside this particular class I have my name. So what I can do, I can copy this and I can place it right here. So I am placing my model attribute name inside the session attribute. So what is going to happen here is, whenever Spring is going to put the user info data inside a model attribute, inside the model, whenever it is going to put the user info data, it is also going to put the same data, or it is going to put the same object inside the session. Okay, and that particular object will be there inside the HTTP session. Okay, this particular guy is going to use the HTTP session behind the scene. Well, this can be configurable. If you want, you do not want to store it inside the HTTP session, you want to store it somewhere in a different place or inside a database, we can absolutely do that, and we will be doing that later. But right now, understand that only we can store model attributes or model objects inside the session attribute. This is the first point. The second thing is, let's say right now this particular object I want to store in the session, and from this object, let's say I'm copying this one, and right now if I'll go to, let's say, process email page, right here we want the object, right? We want the username object. So what I can do, command V, user info DTO dot username. Okay, there you go. And let me copy this again. Also inside the send email, I need to write the same thing. Command B. So let me do command S right now. Let me do command S, and let me start the server, and let's see whether our thing is working fine or not, and whether I'm able to log my data in each JSP pages, right? So I know the thing is not going to work. There is a specific catch. There is a specific thing that we need to understand. So knowingly, I'm making a mistake here. So I know it is not going to run. Okay, let me go to my Google Chrome, and right here, now let me hit this particular page, enter. Okay, I got my page. Let's say I am giving some username, let's say John and Johnny. Let me hit calculate. So I came to the next page right here, and let me click the send result to your email. Let me see whether I'm getting this in the next page. Okay, here I'm not getting the John here, the username here, and also in the next page also I'm not getting the username here, but I would have get an error right here. But why it didn't give me an error? I did a mistake. Oh, there you go. There you go. So see here, inside the session attributes, I should have stored the model attribute. My model attribute name is user info. Let me copy this user info and let me place it here. I have actually copied this particular name. I should have copied the model attribute name. This particular name should match it with my model attribute name. Okay, I should have only stored those things to the session which is there inside my model, right? So I have done a mistake. So let me restart my server, and that's why I was thinking that why I am not getting an error, and this is the reason. I have written wrong code here. So let me go to the home page again, and there you go. Whenever I am trying to access the home page, see what is going to happen. here it is saying expected session attribute user info. Okay, and it is giving you an exception called HttpSessionRequiredException. It is saying that it is expecting the user info object, which is not there inside the session. Okay, but if you see here, so here if you see, I have this user info inside the session attributes, but why I'm getting an error here? And it is saying that expected session attribute user info. It is saying that I do not have a session attribute called user info inside the session, but I already have it, right? If I'll go here, I already have it here, right? So the reason why I'm getting an exception, that's because whenever you will have a @model attribute, this particular thing will not work. Okay, so here we are telling Spring that we need to store this particular object or this particular model attribute inside the session, and Spring says, okay, no problem, I'm going to save this particular object inside the session, but you make sure that first you will be adding this particular thing to the model attribute by yourself. So add model attribute, whenever I was explaining you this particular annotation, I told you guys that this is a shortcut, right? What is the actual way of putting something in the model? I will create something called model, right? And I'll do Command Shift O to import my model interface. And right here, I should say model, add attribute. This is going to be my model name. So let me say Command V, model name, and let me put it inside quote. There you go. And the attribute value. The attribute value will be user info DTO instance, right? So whenever I write like this, Spring is basically going to create the user info DTO object for myself, right? So manually, I do not need to write user info DTO equal to new user info DTO, because Spring basically does it by itself. But right now, I need to pass the user info DTO by myself, right? I need to write new user info DTO. There you go. So this particular line is basically the replacement of this. So right now, there is no need to write the model attribute just like this, because I have rewrite the same thing right here. Okay, so right now we are creating the user info DTO object manually, and we are also adding the user info DTO to the model by giving a model name as user info, and we are placing the same model attribute name right here inside the session attribute. Right now, if I'll do Command S, right now as I'm manually adding it right here, let me see whether the things are working fine. So let me start my server again, and hopefully things will work fine. So what the session attribute says that, so Spring will check what? If we have a add session attributes, first of all, we should have add the model attributes manually to the model, and the model attribute name and the session attribute name should be same, right? So right now, let me go to Chrome and let me hit this. And right now our page loaded fine. And right here I can say Abhilash. Cross name is, let's say, Abhilash 123 something. Okay, I have a cross on myself. I can hit calculate. Result, and still right now I am not able to log the username right here. Why? It should have worked, right? So let me check inside the process email page. Okay, so there you go. If you see the process email page, right now this particular DTO name also we need to change, right? So if I'll go to my email controller, if I'll go to my LC app controller, right here, my session attribute name is user info. So I need to copy this user info. This is going to be my session object, or this is the object which stores the user info DTO. From here, I can page whatever I want. Let's say I'll go to the send email page, and here instead of saying user info DTO, let me change it to user info. Let me do Command S, and also let me go to result page, not the result page, process email page, and right here also I need to change the session attribute name, and hopefully 100% the things will work right now. I'm damn sure about it. Let's say Abhilash, calculate, send result to email, and there you go, hi Abhilash. And if I write something right here, send, and again it will say hi Abhilash. So right now you can see how simple the session attribute is to use. So only thing you need to make sure is whenever you are adding the session attribute right here, this should be your model object name. And if you want, you can add multiple objects right here. Let's say there are multiple model attributes you are using right here. So you can use a curly brace right here, and you can keep adding your attributes just like this, because model attributes basically takes an array. If you have multiple model attributes, you can keep adding your attributes just like this, and you can access all these attributes right there inside your JSP page, right? And if you see right now, I have only this piece of code, and this particular piece of code basically pushing this particular object user info to session, and wherever I want it, I am actually using it by directly calling the object based on the reference called user info. And this is pretty nice, isn't it? And HttpSessionAttributes right now does the trick for us. Okay guys, so far we have learned the HttpSessionAttribute, but do not get an assumption that you have learned the HttpSessionAttribute pretty well, because this particular annotation is really tricky. So if you talk about the HttpSessionAttribute, is just not a normal Spring MVC annotation. The HttpSessionAttributes works in a different way. It is a very important annotation, and as a developer, as a Spring developer, it is very important that you should understand the HttpSessionAttribute. Whatever we learned so far, it is nothing. We are just putting the model attribute name just right here, and again we are taking this variable name, and wherever we want, we are just accessing it. This is very simple, but there are a lot of loophole, and if you do not know it, then it is going to be really challenging to fix some bugs, or it will put you into some serious trouble. So it is better that we'll talk about the HttpSessionAttributes in a different episode, and we will spend around an hour or 1.5 hours only talking about this particular annotation, because it is important. And then again we will start developing our application. Right now we are basically done a very good job. We only need to give the implementation for this email, because we need to send email in real, right? It's not some kind of just dummy pages. And also we need to have a logic to calculate this particular result. So let me stop this video right now, and again I'm going to shoot it after 5 or 10 minutes. So bye bye till then, and do like if you're liking it, and also do subscribe if you want, and also follow me on Instagram if you want, like my Facebook page also if you want, and also join the Selenium Express support Facebook group if you have any question. Okay, so enough of promotion. I'll see you after a while. Take care till then. Bye bye and happy coding.